But LeBron and his team are brilliant at creating injury excuses. Nobody in the history of sports has ever been more clever and deceitful in faking and creating and exaggerating injuries than LeBron James and his camp.
LeBron James drove to the rim, dropped in the layup, and the ball slipped clean through the net. But instead of running back on defense, he collapsed to the floor and stayed there, pointing straight at Nikola Jokic like something had just gone seriously wrong. Jokic stood nearby looking confused, almost like LeBron believed the basket shouldn't count unless someone got punished for letting it happen. The referees paused, looked it over, and reviewed the play. Then came the answer. Nothing. No foul, no whistle, no call at all. Meanwhile, the Denver Nuggets pushed the ball up the court on a fast break while LeBron was still lying on the hardwood at Ball Arena, demanding a call that simply wasn't coming. And that's when things got strange. LeBron eventually walked to the bench, sat for a moment, then returned to the game. 2 minutes later, he was back on the floor again. Then he got subbed out once more. After the Lakers lost 120-113, he faced reporters and tried to explain what had happened. He said he wasn't sure how serious the elbow injury was yet. He admitted it felt pretty sore. He compared it to hitting the funny bone, but said the pain was stronger and sharper. His plan was simple: wake up the next morning and see how the elbow felt. Well, the next morning brought a major update. Before we go on, if you're enjoying the video, drop a like and subscribe. It may seem small, but it makes a huge difference for the channel. The Lakers officially ruled LeBron out for the next game against the Indiana Pacers, and instantly, the basketball world split into two very familiar camps that seem to appear every time this kind of situation unfolds.
LeBron James isn't hurting. He's pouting. He's rebelling. He's going little kid on the Los Angeles Lakers for the way they have treated or mistreated him, in his view. He's saying, okay, if Luke is the man, if I'm not in your plans, then I'm basically going to take my basketball and go home.
One side argued the injury was legitimate and that LeBron deserved respect for even trying to push through the pain. The other side immediately pulled up a timeline and asked a much tougher question: how many times are we going to watch this exact same movie play out? Skip Bayless had already raised that concern months earlier. Back in October, when LeBron missed the first 14 games of the season because of sciatica, Bayless reacted with the frustration of someone who believes he's seen this pattern repeat over and over again. First comes the injury announcement, then the vague timeline, then the quiet updates that never fully explain what's happening. Soon after that comes the cryptic Instagram post, usually something mysterious like an hourglass emoji hinting that a return is coming soon. Then the comeback arrives, the storyline resets, and the debate starts all over again. In October, it was sciatica. In March, it was the elbow. Both injuries appeared during moments when pressure around the team was building. Both followed stretches where LeBron's performances were under heavy scrutiny, and both came with the same cautious language after games, leaving fans asking the same question they've been asking for years: is the injury real? The honest answer is simple. Nobody outside a medical imaging room truly knows for certain, but whether the injury is serious or not, the pattern itself is very real. In less than 12 months, 3 different injuries have sparked the same debate. First came the MCL sprain during Game 5 against the Minnesota Timberwolves in May 2025. Then the sciatica in October 2025 that kept LeBron out for the first 14 games of the season, and now the elbow injury in March 2026 against Denver, right as the playoff race started tightening with only 20 games left. Skip Bayless even wrote on X after the Timberwolves series, suggesting the timing felt suspicious. He posted, "LeBron is funny. Nearly every time he flames out in the playoffs, he comes up with an excuse, usually leaked by Rich Paul." Bayless was referring to the MCL sprain that became public only after the Lakers were already eliminated. The team had lost the series in 5 games, and LeBron had averaged 25.4 points and 9 rebounds while playing more than 40 minutes per game. Because the announcement came after the series ended, critics argued it sounded less like an injury report and more like a delayed explanation. Bayless responded with another sharp line, describing Rich Paul as the all-time greatest at excuse planting with key media members. Then 6 months later came the sciatica storyline, 14 games missed, practice sessions with the G League affiliate, and eventually that now famous hourglass emoji posted to Instagram. On the Gills Arena show, Josiah Johnson reacted by saying, "I feel like that's sciatica. Might be a little fugazi." Johnson went even further, explaining his theory about what might really be happening. He said, "The Lakers are going to struggle in these first 10 to 12 games without LeBron there, but after they struggle, he's going to come back and remind them of his importance." Then he added, "He's basically saying, if I'm not going to get the respect from the front office, I'm going to remind you who I am. Fugazi." That was the exact word Josiah Johnson used while discussing the situation. What made that claim resonate with fans wasn't just the accusation itself, it was the motive behind it. The theory suggested LeBron wasn't resting just to recover, but to send a message to the front office, a message to the organization, and a message to the executives who reportedly flew to Europe to sign Luka Doncic while contract talks with LeBron remained unresolved. The theory was simple: let the team struggle without him, watch the record, watch the standings, see how things look when he isn't there to handle the toughest assignments and absorb the hardest minutes, then return once the lesson has been learned. But here's the twist that complicated that entire theory. While LeBron was out, the Lakers went 10-4. Without him on the court, the lesson ended up going in the exact opposite direction. And once LeBron finally returned, the Lakers started losing in ways that analysts like Byron Scott, Charles Barkley, and Tim McMahon had been warning about for months. That moment created the third nearly identical post-game injury update LeBron has delivered within the last year.
What was I feeling? Feel like one of them funny bone situations, but like usually much super more intense. What happens over the next couple of days? Hopefully I wake up tomorrow and it doesn't feel too much worse than it is now. If it feels better, that'd be great. So we'll see what happens.
The same vague description of pain, the same wait and see tomorrow timeline, the same hopeful tone about how things might feel in the morning, and once again, almost no real details that would help anyone understand what actually happened medically. Now compare that with what Nikola Jokic said about the same play after the game. Jokic looked at the reporter with a blank expression, almost confused about why the question was even being asked. Then he said, "It's the same, it's marginal, it's the same, it's whatever. That's all they keep saying is marginal." He added, "I'm so effing tired of that word, marginal." That was the exact word the referees used to describe the contact between Jokic and LeBron. Not a flagrant foul, not a technical, just marginal contact during a normal drive to the basket. But after that marginal contact, LeBron stayed on the floor for several seconds. He pointed toward Jokic, he gestured toward the referees, then he was helped toward the bench before returning to the game a couple minutes later. Soon after that, he was subbed out again. Then he went to the locker room, spoke with reporters, and explained that the elbow felt like hitting a funny bone, only much more intense. The next morning came the official update. LeBron was ruled out for the next game against the Indiana Pacers. And here's where the situation started raising eyebrows across the league. The Pacers entered that game with a brutal record of 15 wins and 47 losses, the worst record in the Eastern Conference. On top of that, Tyrese Halliburton was already out with an Achilles injury. So the Lakers ruled LeBron out against a struggling 15-47 Pacers team. Reporter Ryan Ward wrote about the situation and offered a possible explanation. He said, as for James and Kleber, it doesn't seem like either of them are dealing with major injury issues and are potentially sitting because it will be the second game of a back-to-back against one of the worst teams in the NBA. That observation came from a credentialed Lakers reporter, not a hot take personality, not a conspiracy theory channel online. This was a journalist who covers the team every single day, and his wording suggested something that raised serious questions, that the decision might not be about a serious injury at all, but instead, load management described using injury language during a back-to-back game against a struggling Pacers squad. That kind of framing is incredibly damaging to the public perception of what's happening, because it shifts the story away from injury recovery and toward a much more controversial explanation. If true, it would mean the team isn't just resting a player, they're presenting the rest as an injury situation, and they're doing it with only 20 games left in the season while the playoff race in the Western Conference keeps tightening. At that moment, the Lakers were sitting at 37-25 and holding the 6th seed. Now look at the numbers that place this entire situation into perspective. LeBron has played in 40 of the Lakers' 62 games this season. Just 40. He missed the first 14 games with sciatica, then 8 additional games during the season for various issues. And now the elbow situation has ruled him out again against Indiana. That means the Lakers are dealing with a 4th major absence from their $52.6 million star in a single season. 4 separate interruptions, 1 elbow injury, 1 sciatica stretch, 1 MCL situation, and now a back-to-back rest day that some observers believe may be described as an injury. Back in October, Skip Bayless raised similar concerns about the sciatica storyline. And that situation produced a very surprising result: 14 games missed. Yet the Lakers went 10-4 during that stretch. During that same run, Luka Doncic surged into MVP conversations, and Austin Reeves delivered a scoring stretch close to 30 points per game. The team suddenly looked like it had discovered a clear identity even without its $52.6 million centerpiece on the floor. Now look back at the MCL storyline from May. That situation produced something completely different, a retroactive explanation for the Lakers' playoff exit against the Minnesota Timberwolves. LeBron still averaged 25.4 points per game in that series. Yet critics pointed to a media narrative campaign that followed the elimination. And now the elbow injury in March has created yet another chapter. A missed back-to-back game against a struggling Pacers team. A growing news cycle focused on injury concerns with only 20 games left. And a rising debate about whether the Lakers can depend on their most important player during a playoff push they desperately need to survive the Western Conference. All of that leads to one uncomfortable question, a question that has surfaced after 3 separate injury storylines within the last 12 months, and it's a question that many voices in mainstream sports media still hesitate to ask directly. Except people like Skip Bayless, Josiah Johnson, and thousands of fans online who watched the Jokic play, replayed it frame by frame, and all asked the same question at the exact same moment. Is this real? The honest truth is still the same. Nobody outside the medical staff truly knows for certain. LeBron James has played 23 seasons in the NBA. He is now 41 years old, and his body has taken more physical punishment than almost any player in basketball history. At that age, even something like hitting the funny bone can feel very different than it does for a 28-year-old athlete. A collision with Nikola Jokic late in a physical game isn't nothing either. But the real conversation keeps coming back to one thing: the pattern. Because whether each injury is serious or not, the pattern surrounding them is what people keep noticing. Every time the pressure reaches its peak, every time LeBron's performances start facing heavy scrutiny, every time the narrative around him becomes uncomfortable, an injury appears. First comes the timeline, and then the vague update during a press conference. Soon after that, a statement from Rich Paul, then a mysterious Instagram post, sometimes even an hourglass emoji hinting at a comeback. And suddenly, the entire conversation shifts. Instead of talking about performance, everyone starts talking about the injury. The sciatica storyline shifted the conversation away from contract questions. The MCL story shifted attention away from a first-round playoff exit, and now the elbow situation has shifted focus away from the Nuggets' loss and that fourth-quarter moment when LeBron was on the floor pointing at Nikola Jokic after what referees described as marginal contact. 3 major resets, 3 injury storylines, all within 12 months. And now there are only 20 games left before the playoffs arrive. Once April begins, there are no resets available. No vague press conference updates, no mysterious timelines, no funny bone explanations, just results, just the scoreboard, just the brutal reality of the Western Conference playoff bracket, where teams that cannot rely on their most important player in critical moments rarely survive long. On the same night, LeBron broke Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's all-time field goal record. He also ended up on the floor pointing toward Nikola Jokic after that drive to the basket. That same night ended with him explaining the elbow pain to reporters, and that same night was followed by the announcement that he would be ruled out against the Indiana Pacers. Historic milestone, injury drama, vague update. Then suddenly, the greatest scorer in NBA history is sitting out a back-to-back game against a struggling 15-47 Pacers team with a funny bone situation that felt much more intense. Meanwhile, the playoffs are only about 5 weeks away. Skip Bayless even said back in October, nobody in the history of history has ever been more clever and deceitful at this than LeBron James and his camp. And after what happened in Denver, plenty of people online said they still aren't convinced otherwise. But now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Do you think LeBron's injuries this season are legitimate health issues, or is the pattern starting to feel too consistent to ignore? And can the Lakers afford another absence from their $52.6 million star with the playoff race tightening every single night? If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to NBA Pulse for more NBA stories, drama, and analysis. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.